Hello, John Jerkovich here with the fifth installment of Loans, Homes, and Stuff. Our question of the day is, John, if I go ahead and move forward with a new mortgage, tell me a little bit about what to expect about the process, how long is it going to take, and I hear all kinds of horror stories about how hard it is to get a loan today. And with rates crazy low, I'm sure more and more people every day are figuring out just how much fun it is to get a mortgage today. I hear it all the time. I've done 25 loans in my life, and this is the worst process, or you've never asked me for this before. Well, that's kind of the reality of it, and there's primarily one reason, and I'll touch on that as to why we're asking for more today. Two reasons, however, as to why the process today is maybe a little more cumbersome than what it has been in the past. Thing number one is straight up an issue of supply and demand. There is more demand for loans today than what there is supply. In certain states, it's taking 6 to 8 weeks just to get an appraisal back. You got to start a loan the beginning of August. They tell you you're closing the end of October. Doesn't make sense. It's a drug out process. And the loan process is a whole series of hurry up and waits. Your loan officer is going to ask you for a whole bunch of stuff, have a ton of sense of urgency. Please give me all this. And then you're just going to get put on ice, and you're going to wait for appraisals, title, those kind of things. And with those vendors being busier than normal, that process is a little slowed down. The next, and I think another reason, probably more so, why the process today is more cumbersome, the federal government became involved. They passed a couple of laws, one called a QM, which is a qualified mortgage, the other one, ATR, ability to repay. And then recently they passed some disclosure guidelines called TRID, which impacts timing and a bunch of other stuff as far as when you can and cannot close. But just know, anytime the government becomes involved, not only do they tell you how much soda you can drink, but they know what's best for you, and therefore it slows down the process. But we now have to verify all kinds of crazy things that we didn't have to in the past. Just understand, as a consumer, even Bill Gates would get asked about these things because we have to pass this litany of rules to get you there. For example, if you own a house in Canada with 5 of your siblings and you report it on your tax return because they pulled a 4506 or they pulled your tax transcript from the government and they see that you paid some interest on something, you now need to supply probably a tax bill, a homeowner's bill. They want to know what the payment is, because when the mortgage crisis happened, a lot of people cried that the mortgage company gave me a loan I couldn't afford because of these other things. However, my belief is the consumer probably knew they couldn't afford it at that time, but they wanted it anyways and thought that the values were just always going to go up. But those are two things. So here is some things that you can do maybe to make the process a little bit easier. Thing number one, try to work with your loan officer. Find somebody that you believe is good and understands the process, and somebody that's not afraid to ask you for things. I would expect to have paycheck stubs, W-2s, maybe a tax return depending on how you get your income. And if the loan officer can't tell you up front what things you should need through the process and ask them for you, and they're like, please send me your paycheck stub if you would, please. Probably not a loan officer you want to deal with. You want somebody that knows what they're doing. They will make your process significantly smoother. And if your loan officer does come back to you and ask you for something that they didn't up front, they need to attack that quickly and without flinching and just come to you. Understand, they don't want to ask you for another paycheck stub. Their processor doesn't want to ask you for additional things. This is just part of getting a loan today. The next thing is, please be diligent of your credit. In the past, you used to have your credit pulled at the beginning of the process. You could go out, you could buy a new car, you could charge up credit cards, do whatever you want. Today, we're monitoring your credit every single day. For the most part, between the time you start the process and the end, can add for additional disclosures that you would have to sign, things updating the credit, letters of explanation, could even impact whether or not your loan would qualify. So keep making your payments on time and don't take out any new debt. The last thing is, there's all these disclosures. I mentioned the government once again, and these disclosures have dates. From the time you receive a certain disclosure, certain events can't happen until then. So if you're receiving disclosures from your loan officer, from the company that you're doing a loan with, please remember that they need that to get completed, in a lot of cases to move to the next step. Like at the end of the closing process, you have to review a closing disclosure a certain number of days before you can close. It's not a bad thing, just understand that the process is a little bit different and it slows things down. So the moral of the story, and how I kind of like to think about the mortgage business and the mortgage process, is it kind of sucks. There's a lot of people that are involved, a lot of different processes, and it sucks. And some companies are better, some companies are worse, but it may be a question of who sucks less. So keep that in mind. Try to be diligent upfront with your credit. Do the things that you can as a consumer to make sure that it moves quickly. As a loan officer, please make sure that you're asking for everything from your clients up front. Try to be as transparent as possible. I would rather not do business with somebody than do business with them under a false pretense. So if you have any questions, concerns, please like, follow, share. Send me any questions. I would love to address your topics in another episode. Thank you very much. Have a great day. And remember, mortgage interest rates right now are phenomenal. Find a loan officer. If you have not had your credit, your whole profile looked at, you kind of got to go to the doctor every few years for a checkup. Do a mortgage checkup. Right now is the time. Thank you very much. You have a great day.